We go for launch.
5.
Quiet, numbskulls, I'm broadcasting. Anything can happen in the next half hour.
4.
My friend, we cannot keep this a secret any longer.
This whole thing is insane.
3.
Quiet, please. I am analyzing.
Where's the kaboom?
2.
There was supposed to be an earth-shattering kaboom.
1.
You're convinced that the thing on this table isn't human?
Its cries are human.
Do you know what it is, what I began with?
No.
An animal? Well, we may as well discuss this frankly, now that you know the facts. I wanted to prove how completely she was a woman.
I'm not beaten.
Get everything ready.
For what?
This time I'll burn out all the animal in her. I'll make her completely human.
Shipwrecked and cast away on a land beyond human experience. A world inhabited by sounds and shadows. The island of Dr. Moreau.
Good morning. We haven't met, officially that is. I'm Dr. Moreau.
Andrew Braddock, sir.
Has he come for your work?
No. Just till the next ship arrives.
The island was a Garden of Eden. A tropical paradise, and a trap. Because here, a bizarre civilization was growing.
What happened, Mr. Braddock?
Well, those creatures, what are they?
You go back to the compound, that way.
What were they? This is human. This is man.
Understandably, they fear this place, the pain they've suffered. And when they revert, they bring back into their brute lives the memory of that experience, their human legacy. You will explore that in the battlefield and bring back the knowledge, the ultimate knowledge.
No!
You see, it's happening already.
No!
You are an animal.
This is the chillingly prophetic story of the genius who tore down the walls that separate man and beast. Burt Lancaster, Michael York, Nigel Davenport, Barbara Carrera, Richard Basehart, and the incredible humanimals that populate the island of Dr. Moreau.
And on this episode of Planet 8, we are joined by no one. It's just the three of us. We're going to be talking about,
You're stuck with us.
This go around, we'll be touching on the island of Dr. Moreau, the book, which came out in 1896, H.G. Wells.
Long time ago.
There was a funny story about the cover of that book that we'll get into a little bit later in the show. Still tickles me. But
it depends on what edition you got, right?
Yeah, that's true. We're going to be talking about the Island of Lost Souls. the Island of Dr. Moreau from the 70s, and then the 96 classic, almost classic. Could have been Brando and Val Kilmer film. And let's just take a deep dive. I have always been fascinated with the second film. I believe it or not, I never saw the first film all the way through. So for this podcast,
wow.
and what a shocker.
Well, I will admit that I never saw the first film until I was an adult. It was just not, it wasn't shown, it wasn't in circulation with the films that I used to watch as a kid, you know, that they would show on the creature features and stuff either. So I really didn't know much about it. And then I bought that Criterion Collection video and it blew my mind.
Yeah.
Yep, I've got the same one, Bob. Yeah, it's a just a fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, I will admit that I did not see the first film in theaters.
You're not immortal.
Wow.
I was not even a glimmer in my mother's eye.
Could have come out at the drive-in and a reissue of some sort as these films did.
Now, the Island of Dr. Moreau, the 70s film, yes, I did see it in the theaters, but yeah, not the first one, which came out in
1932.
Yeah.
And, it had Bela Lugosi, and the makeup. Who did the makeup in that? I forgot to look that up.
You know, it's not credited, but
they're not credited.
It says, I saw a video with Bob Burns and Rick Baker and John Landis, and they said Charlie Gamora, who did, ape suits and stuff, they said he did the makeup in Island of Lost Souls.
The alien for the War of the Worlds, right? The E.T.
Right.
Well, what really got me is this came out, a year after Frankenstein, right? Frankenstein was 1931.
Yeah.
Right.
Bela Lugosi turned down Frankenstein because he didn't want to wear all the makeup. And now here he is in this one with just a big old mop
right,
glued to his face. He had more makeup on than Boris ever did in Frankenstein.
Oh, he's covered in hair. I mean, he's just covered. You can't really see his face at all.
It's actually kind of amusing, but
it's a cool role for him. And I guess he came into that role sort of last minute. Other actor whose name escapes me, for whatever reason, left the production. And then Lugosi was going through bankruptcy proceedings and really needed some money, and they got him super cheap.
Yeah, it was like
kind of the story of his life,
Bella,
was after Dracula too. Right?
It was a couple of years.
Didn't get much money for Dracula, I guess, and he had done that on stage as well. So
yeah. Why did you do this, Bella? Bella needed the money.
Pretty much, every time.
Well, I mean, that's probably why he worked again in the 50s with Ed Wood and all that. He still needed the money. But
he
what
did not
amazes
make
me about Bella
great life choices.
Right.
What amazes me about Bella is the voices. Because if you look like the voice he does for Dracula, which is pretty much kind of his voice, but then you look at the voice he does here in Island of Lost Souls, and then the voice he did when he played Igor.
Mm-hmm.
Like three totally different tones and voices.
Right. Not that he was typecast, but Bella had that very thick accent. And unless it was, a certain kind of role, he wasn't gonna, be able to, it wasn't what they were looking for, I guess, in casting. And I think that really hurt him. And like Walker said, he's made some poor choices, and it's unfortunate. But in any case, he was in this.
And I think sorry. I just think he's he does a great job. I mean, I tend to feel like his role as Igor is my favorite of
Absolutely.
his roles, because I feel like he really does a great job, and Igor is so layered, you know. But this is also a really interesting role because as you know, he's the sayer of the law, and he's sort of not that there's any real you know arc to the character, but he's sort of the one beast man who's supposed to be sort of, you know, trying to uphold this what little bit of structure there is to these people, right? And then at a certain point, though, he feels betrayed, and he portrays that really well. And I don't know if that is sort of coming from Bella and all of his life experiences or what, but, you know, he gives into that betrayal when they all go to, you know, trash Moreau's compound and everything. But, you know, at the beginning, he's sort of like, you know, he's doing the whole, are we not the men? And he's trying to keep them all together. And
what is
the
law?
Yeah, so the whole, what is the law? And he's the one who has to recite the law.
Mm-hmm.
But when he's at the end, he says, what is the law? And the rest of them are like, there is no law. There is no law. Because that was the point where, spoiler, where Dr. Moreau had killed his assistant and all that. But,
right,
you know, suddenly like, because Moreau and his assistant were supposed to be immortal. And they were gods to these people.
They were supposed to be gods.
When he killed his assistant, suddenly he's not immortal.
A god can die?
It's a lie.
Right.
So the laws are a lie. Everything's a lie.
And they're not to spill blood, but Moreau spilled blood.
Yes.
So they broke the law.
Do you remember the House of Pain?
Well, and then that brings us to like Charles Lawton, who's just amazing.
Let me just say quickly, there were a lot of edits and cuts to this film. It was banned in several countries.
Oh yeah, even in the U.S. in some places.
Yeah, I mean, it was a big deal. And it wasn't until the Criterion Collection came out in like 2010, 2011 that, and even Criterion says, it was a pain in the ass, not a direct quote, trying to reassemble those lost pieces of this film. Now, I've never seen the cut version, and I've only seen, you know, the Criterion, and it's a disturbing film. Even for 1932. I mean,
and the restored version is what? It's not that long of a movie.
No, it's
so the cut film had to be like an hour or something. I mean,
yeah.
Well, they were saying specifically it was Charles Lawton or Dr. Moreau's some of his dialogue, a lot of his dialogue taken out. There were several edits.
And I think a lot of it was around his attempts to get what's his name, Edward, to essentially mate with Loda, the leopard woman. Right. So there was a lot of sexual suggestion there. There's the flat out, it's super freaky when Edward's fiance shows up, and then Lawton or Moreau is trying to get one of the animal men to attack and essentially rape her. And when that guy is really creepy. And when he breaks into her room and he's like got this big grin on his face, it's like, whoa, that is one of the creepiest things I've seen.
Absolutely.
I'm for some fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah, no, I mean, she does a great job though, playing was it a leopard or panther?
Panther.
Feline woman. But they had a big talent search, and she was not an actress before this movie, but they did a big talent search to find someone who had sort of the feline features and the movements and could pull that off. And yeah, she did a great job. But the whole thing about this movie is it was pre-code.
Right.
Pre-code, they could film certain things that once the code came in, that's, I think, when things started getting cut.
Right.
Yeah. And then it had to be, and then we get to today, the Lawless West, and they could assemble it all back together again. But it's very dark, very moody. a lot of shadows. It's I think it's out of the three movies, the first one is definitely my favorite.
I would agree. I like it the most because it's just the creepiest. It's just the most disturbing.
Like I said, I've never seen it. I love the 70s version. I probably need to watch this again, but I did really, really enjoy how disturbed I was, if that makes sense. Like, whoa.
There's so many things about it too. I mean, the Beast Men in this, even though they maybe don't have all the prosthetics of like the other two movies, I almost feel like their makeups are more disturbing because most of them look more human, but they just look more, I don't know how to put it, like disturbed, like they're like mentally deranged people or something. They just
human with a twist.
Something.
Yeah. And Lawton himself as Moreau is very sort of sardonic. Like he's having fun. Like we'll talk about the 77 film in a minute. I mean, in that one, who is it? It's Burt Lancaster. He's a much more refined, it's like, yeah, of course, this guy is a scientist and he seems like a scientist. Lawton seems like he's almost like a devilish figure in that he's just playing a game with everybody. It's like, and the whole thing where like he's trying to mate Lotta to Edward.
Right.
And you sort of think, well, he could have mated him. He could have done it with her or the other assistant. But then I almost feel like, and I know Lawton was gay in real life, but I don't know that Moreau is gay or maybe asexual or something. There's something about him that is just off, like sexually. I don't know that he, has any of those feelings. And he's so sadistic. Maybe that's part of it. It's like he's just got such a sadistic nature.
He's very scientific. And so rather than being sex or eroticism, it's an experiment for him.
Yeah, but he takes a strange pleasure from it, right? I mean, it's not just...
Well, I mean, he's discovering new frontiers, right? But, I think it's interesting that, H.G. Wells wrote Island of Dr. Moreau, and then we had Mary Shelley with Frankenstein, and both are somewhat the same in that they're critiques of men playing God and trying to pervert life, whether it's Frankenstein, Dr. Frankenstein putting together parts of corpses to reanimate, or whether it's Dr. Moreau taking animals and evolving them into humans. It's things that man was not meant to do.
And there's even a line in there. It struck me because Moreau at a certain point says something about, he says, what is it to feel like God? And I thought, well, that's just like, in the 31 Frankenstein, which was the year before when Frank, after he gets the monster alive and he starts saying, now I know what it's like to be like God. So yeah, there's a theme of sort of doing those things men weren't supposed to know kind of thing. And
that line was cut out of Frankenstein for decades as well.
Many years. Yeah, I remember I didn't hear it for years. And I was like surprised to hear
You can even see like they just cut it. They didn't bother trying to match anything because you see him like, it's alive, and then there's like a jump cut. And then he finishes his laugh or whatever. But
I think there's also a sense of like classism too. There's a structure that Moreau creates, and even though he's creating all these creatures, he's creating a hierarchy with him at the top. He's definitely playing God, and then they all are sort of stratified. The beast men stratify, and again, like we were talking about, they create a social structure, but it also, and I think this, unfortunately, after going through pandemic and everything else, you see how easily those social structures can collapse, right? They broke a couple of the laws, and then the beastmen start going bananas, and the whole society they have there starts to fall apart. And there's this whole talk about, like, he starts making these creatures, but they revert to their nature, right? So it's like, can we ever overcome our own nature?
Well, yeah, I mean, that in that film and in the 70s film, both characters, Moreau, get very upset when their creations revert back to some of their animal instincts.
Mm-hmm.
And then they have to go to the House of Pain and
the House of Pain
mixed up. But yeah, I mean, it's and I think I think it differs between the book and the two films how he's doing it, because I think in Island of Lost Souls is pretty much like surgery.
Yeah.
And the 70s films is kind of like surgery, but there's also some like genetic splicing going on and chemical type stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know about the book. I haven't read the book, so I don't know.
Well, I've just read the book, and in the book, it's definitely much more about surgery. Although he mentions some things about like gland extracts and things like that. But yeah, it's some of the descriptions of what Moreau does essentially sounds like he's getting in there and just banging away and stretching limbs of animals while they're, and because it was against, Wells was against vivisection of animals. And so this was seen as like an anti-vivisectionist work. And so he was talking about, the animals are wide awake, there's no painkillers. And he would, Moreau was like breaking and resetting legs and stuff to make arms and things like that. And it just was like really brutal manual work that he was doing on these animals.
Well, H.G. Wells was definitely had a science slant, and he definitely like thought these things out, whether it's genetic experiments in Island of Dr. Moreau or alien invasions in War of the Worlds or whatever. It's he definitely had the science background, I think, more than most authors back then.
Well, apparently he hated Island of Lost Souls.
Oh.
I was glad that it was
sure did
banned because it was salacious. He didn't, in the novel, there's no female character, no panther lady or whatever. And so, he was not happy with that being included in it. And, some of the other stuff that he, I guess, felt was gratuitous. So, he was rather happy that it was not in release in the UK and a lot of other countries. So, he was not a fan.
Well, I think even here it was a very short release. But I don't know, a lot of people, reading quotes and things, like a lot of filmmakers, whether it's Rick Baker or John Landis or whatever, really like the Island of Lost Souls. Consider it definitely a classic. Not just from the makeup, but from the whole atmosphere, story, script, everything.
Yeah.
But still, watching it for the podcast, I think it still holds up today, even though it was made almost 100 years ago.
Yeah.
Wow, that's weird to think, but yeah, it's
years.
Almost that old.
Yeah.
And of course, we would be remiss not to mention that it influenced the band Devo, because you think about, like their first album was called Are We Not Men? We Are Devo. There's a whole thing on the Criterion disc interviewing, who is it? It's Gerald Casale and Mark Mothersbaugh. And they talk about the whole history of the band and how they used to watch Goulardi in Ohio. And that's where they saw Island of Lost Souls. And they got some of the idea. They got influences from different places, but of course, idea of Are We Not Men? And de-evolution and all that. So another little reference there.
That is cool.
It's pretty funny.
Let us move on to the 1977 version, and this version was called The Island of Dr. Moreau, directed by Don Taylor, who famously also directed Escape from Planet of the Apes.
That's what I thought. Okay.
Yeah.
And he did he do Conquest as well? Thought he did a couple of them.
Stalag 17, Tom Sawyer, Damien Omen 2. I don't see any more ape films, but I research may be a little remiss. It's not all.
So
No
basically,
worries.
he did Island of Dr. Moreau and Escape from Planet of the Apes for his 2 genre films.
Stalag 17 is one of my favorite movies too, but that's for another podcast.
Film though.
Like I say, this was my favorite. Still is, one of my favorite films. But I gotta watch Island of Lost Souls one more time. I didn't have a chance to watch it a second time before the podcast, but this may be number 2 now in the Moreau films.
Oh wow.
Yeah, that 1932 Island of Lost Souls.
It's a good one.
Just like with the Manimals, kind of reminded me, like, obviously Tortured Souls, and it was kind of like Last Man on Earth, Morgan. They ghouls were like oppressed and thought Vincent Price's character Morgan was their mortal enemy, and it's interesting to see how in all the films things go bad for Dr. Moreau eventually. What absolute power corrupts absolutely.
Especially in the 77 film.
Yeah, and this Dr. Moreau was Burt Lancaster. I love Burt Lancaster. I mean, that's golden age of Hollywood acting. And he played gangsters, and there's a film with Tony Rand. No, not Tony Randall. Janet Leigh's father was Tony.
Wait, are you thinking of Tony Curtis?
Tony Curtis. Sorry. Tony Curtis. I was thinking of like all these other Tony Curtis, Burt Lancaster, that movie, The Sweet
Smell of Success. Yeah.
Cats in the Bag and the Bag's Down the River. That was like this nice little line in the film. But again, that's for another discussion. This had Michael York, famously from Romeo and Juliet, and
fresh off of Logan's Run.
That's
yes, right. One of our favorite movies.
One of our favorite movies. A young Barbara Carrera, whom had a very serious crush on.
When this movie came out, and I did see it in the theaters.
Yeah.
Don't ask me how I know this, but they had a spread in Playboy. Barbara Carrera, Larry's choking on his water. With Barbara Carrera parading around naked with a guy in the Manimal type makeup.
Oh my God.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
You can, if you look up Barbara Carrera Playboy or something on Google or whatever, I'm sure.
It's a little freaky deaky.
As our readers, our viewers all type into Google now.
So, interestingly enough, that was one of my vivid memories of Island of Dr. Moreau. But no, Barbara Carrera, she was in Embryo before this.
Oh yeah, Rock Hudson.
She was in Never Say Never Again after this.
Yeah, Bond.
And trying to remember what other movies she was in, but Yeah, it was.
Well, this had an all-star cast. I mean, to have Burt Lancaster and Michael York, that was some gravitas. You know, these guys could act. And you know, it's the same old thing. You know, he crashes on the island, and what is it? Emling, I think, or Mling. Mling. And the young woman is Maria, I believe, who is played by Miss Carrera. And Maling is this kind of like, not a hunchback, he's kind of misshapen kind of creature. And you know, Michael York's figuring things out, meets Dr. Moreau, throwing him around, and things descend into chaos, as often happens on the island of Dr. Moreau.
Yeah. If there's one thing you can guarantee on the island of Dr. Moreau, things are going to go awry.
Yeah, and you know, obviously the makeups were a little more advanced. This film was in color. There's this bizarre scene that I'd forgotten until I watched it, where an actual tiger, a tiger is attacking, had to have been a stuntman in one of the
bull man costume.
That could have been the tiger's handler.
Yeah,
the bull man, and it's like, you know,
just throw makeup on and who knows who he is. Right?
Funny, you could tell he had stuffing in his costume because that tiger was tearing the hell out of him. Interesting, but again, I'd forgotten about that. They have the House of Pain. You know, what is the law is still.
Well, the sayer of the law was Richard Basehart.
Really?
Who used to star in Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea.
Bottom of the Sea. Yep.
Yeah. And it was funny because I didn't really realize that when I originally saw the film, but you know, I know it now. And then watching the movie for the podcast here, it's like, of course it's Richard Basehart. It's his voice, it's his mannerisms. It's like, yeah, it's Richard Basehart. Plus, I've been watching Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea a lot on MeTV these days.
Jasmine gets a kick out of watching. She was watching, I think, Godfather, and she's like, "Oh, so and so was in Twilight Zone that episode," and I'm like, "Wow, you're good."
She's starting to become one of us.
Yeah.
Uh-oh.
Well, it's funny because like you got Richard Basehart in Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea, and he went on to play Sayer of the Law in Island of Dr. Moreau. And you've got Colonel Crane, David Hedison, in Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea, who was originally in The Fly back in the 50s.
Huh?
He was The Fly.
So they both were part animal, part something, insect or animal.
They're animals. They matched each other as garanimals.
This version of the film, or this film, was not as disturbing, obviously, as The Island of Lost Souls.
Well, so much of it is out in like daylight. They film a lot of stuff out in the sunlight, so it doesn't seem as like oppressive or mysterious.
When they string him up at the end, the dead body of Moreau, and it's not Christ-like because he's not, you know, that, but they're trying to fool the manimals, you know, he is not dead. They're like,
oh.
Hey,
he's not moving. He's just hanging there, but he's not
talking. He's not moving. He is dead. Throw them all in the House of Pain.
Well, that's the thing. It's like they believe it for maybe 30 seconds until Richard Basehart pokes him with a stick and he doesn't move, and then they realize, oh, he's dead.
Yeah.
Fooled him long enough for Michael York and Barbara Carrera to run off into the jungle.
this Moreau, like you're saying, I mean, Burt Lancaster really feels authoritative. Like he feels like he's got control of this island. He's the boss.
He is, right.
He's got everything under, and then it just all starts to unravel, you know?
And he walks around in that white suit like he's on Fantasy Island.
You know, what was interesting too, in this version, there's a serum that is introduced to the Michael York character.
Yeah, that was different.
Right, that switches him from, it de-evolves him from human to some kind of cat creature, I think.
But it wears off.
You know, it wears off. I guess he didn't have enough treatment to, you know, and Moreau was still experimenting, you know, if we're to be honest too. He's trying to figure out what works which way and how and who and you know, all that.
That was an interesting choice. So both of them, the first one decided to add the woman and the sexual element, and the second one decided, oh, we're going to do that too, and they had some more romanticizing.
Right,
and
but there was no spouse that arrived on the island, right?
No, that was different. Yeah. And then they decided, let's do some de-evolution to the main character to give him some sort of threat. Didn't really seem to go much of anywhere. It was sort of like, oh, he's changing, but then he changed back.
Here's the question.
Was,
was there any elements in the 70s film that was from the book but was not in Island of Lost Souls? Because I'm wondering if they based the 70s film on the book or if they based it on the film.
I would say that's a good question. I don't think there was anything in the 70s film that specifically came from the book, like that wasn't, included in the previous adaptation. I would say, though, that Lancaster was more like Moreau in the book than Lawton was, because Lawton was just more like almost impish and devilish in that way, whereas Lancaster is more like very
focused and obsessed.
Yeah, he seems rational, but he isn't in a way, because he's doing all these crazy things and torturing and stuff, but he peddles it as if like, well, no, I'm doing scientific experiments. And it's like, yeah, but you're cruel and inhumane and everything. But he's like, well, but I have to, the outcome is what's important. And that's pretty much how Moreau is in the novel. He's like, look here, gentlemen, this is my experiment and blah, blah, blah. Whereas, Lawton just seems like he's like, oh, I'm doing these experiments. It's just much more.
Another thing with this film too, though, you mentioned the tiger and all that. It's like when they're ransacking the House of Pain and everything else, they start letting the animals out.
Yeah.
And you've got the sayer, Richard Basehart, no, they're not like us. He's still kind of holding on to the we're human, they're animals. But other manimals are like looking at them like, oh, they're animals like us. Let them out, let them free.
Oh, yeah.
And then,
yeah, that was weird.
And then murder ensues.
As usually happens.
Because wasn't there like a bear too, I think?
Yeah, they got a bunch of animals from gosh, what was it? I remember reading this. It was like some sort of park or something, Buena Vista Park or something.
Yeah, like an animal park zoo thing.
Yeah, so I don't know if they just thought, oh, won't it be cool to have like animals fighting with the people or whatever, or they had a relationship with that group.
Some of the stunt people were like, I have to do what?
Wait, I got to wrestle a tiger while I'm wearing a mask? I think Michael York
fought a bear in the Hulk.
Yeah. Well, I could believe he would win too. Um, I think Michael York is really good in this. He was doing so well in the 70s between like, this, Logan's Run, the Three Musketeers movies.
Oh yeah, that's right.
He was sort of this like extremely skinny but good-looking leading man guy, and just seemed like his career was doing really well.
Well,
And
you really believe, like when he's turning into the animal part of him, and he's in the cage, and his memory's starting to go, or he can't quite articulate things, and Moreau tells him he's an animal, he's not human, and then he just like yells, screams,
Eat
in pain,
raw
basically, and he starts yelling and things. I mean, you really believe that, hey, this guy, he's having some problems here.
Mm-hmm. But of course, then he starts like telling stories about his brothers, and just to prove to Moreau, it's like he was still human. He was still there.
Memories are still there.
Yeah, it really frustrates Moreau. And what do you guys think about? I know when I watched this, I had to rewind the ending because it was so fast at the end when they're in the boat and they're about to get rescued. And you see Barbara Carrera's character is like kind of hiding her face. And then she turns around and they show it so quickly, you almost miss it. But her eyes, like her eyes and I think her mouth, she's starting to look like a Catwoman.
Well, I think the original idea for the ending for that film was that she was supposed to give birth to a cat or panther cub, whatever. But I don't think that was ever filmed, but that was like one of the original ideas.
I read that both the director and Michael York were like, no, we're not going to do that.
That's not
it was too weird for them. Now, they could have done it back in 1932. I think they would have been like, sure, let's do it.
No problem.
No problem. And definitely in 96, but we'll get there.
Anything goes.
Yeah, that's where we're going next.
But yeah, it was so quick, and it was like, I don't know if they just were so uncomfortable or couldn't figure out what they wanted to do with her, because it was like half a second. I mean, it was really fast.
Well,
I thought it would have been stronger if they really showed her, and showed the dismay of the York character,
Or if they built up to it, because if when in watching the film, there's not a lot of mentions made that she wasn't anything but human.
Right.
They said, Moreau says that, he found her, she's adopted, whatever, but he never says where she's coming from, or they never show anything that gives you a hint that she's anything but just a human. So I guess it would be sort of a shock ending, but it would make more sense if they gave some hints along the way and then built up to it.
Yeah, I think that would have been nice. Now, I got to say, when I was a kid and I saw this, I saw it on TV. I'm pretty sure, I don't think I saw it in the theater. I think I saw it on television. But I was looking for this and I couldn't find it. I think there was an issue of Starlog before this came out that showed the Humanimals makeup. And I remember I was super excited. I was like, oh my God, look at all those creatures. Because they're pretty cool looking, and especially if you're like 12 years old or whatever, it's like, oh, those are really neat. And I remember even when it came on TV, it was like, oh, look, there's like a pig man, and there's like a bull man and a tiger man. And, it was just like,
that wasn't
they were clearly, what's that?
So that wasn't in Playboy, was it?
Well, I hope not. But that was the big selling point for me as a kid, was all those different animal people. I don't know what you guys thought about the makeup. I thought it was good. I still enjoyed it.
Amazing makeup back then. Yeah. I mean, you had Planet of the Apes, of course, but there wasn't many other films that had those types of prosthetics.
Absolutely. It was great. Unfortunately, I was reading it cost them something like $6 million to make, and it earned $4 million at the box office. So in later years, it became a cult classic, but even now it's hard to find a copy on DVD online, Amazon or whatever. Kino Lorber, there you go. Kino Lorber put out a version a number of years ago, but I don't even know if it's on Blu-ray. I think it's DVD.
But before we get towards the 90s, let's go back in time, because Karen mentioned something earlier, or maybe Larry did, about the cover of the book. And we never touched on that.
Yeah. What about the cover of the book? I have my copy of the book here.
Well, what was it?
Yeah,
I think it was Larry was saying there's something interesting about the cover of the book that he never went into.
Yeah, depending on the cover you have. But Walker, did you want to show your cover now? Bob had made mention.
Well, I was going to save this for the censor sweep, but
okay. Let's get into the 96 film, and then we'll cover that in the censor sweep. So 1996, the director is credited as being John Frankenheimer, although initially it started off being Richard Stanley, who did some music videos and some horror films. But Frankenheimer famously, one of my favorite films, directed The Manchurian Candidate. It's a great book and a great movie, and the original film was black and white. Had Lovey from Gilligan's Island fame. I can't think of the actress's name, which threw me off. But again, that's for another topic and discussion. Manchurian Candidate, fantastic film.
Natalie Schaefer.
Thank you very much, Bob.
Very good.
Natalie Schaefer. Yeah. Well, yeah.
Oh no, just thunderstorm started.
A
little mood.
Yeah.
Don't lose power. Let's finish this podcast.
Please.
So this was a 1996 film, and there's a documentary, The Doomed Journey of Richard Stanley's Island of Dr. Moreau.
Oh man.
Yeah, I'll say this. He leaves, like, he gets so fed up, he just leaves the production.
I thought he was fired.
Depends on who you ask.
Yeah. Anyway, I think I'm the only one of the three who went in and watched this version of the film. It had been years, I think, since 96.
Yeah, I saw it years ago.
I saw it when it came out in the theaters, but I don't think I've seen it since. So memories of that version are.
Well, here's what's really weird. We talked about the $6 million budget for the 70s film. It only made $4 million. I'm going to start this off with, this budget was $40 million, even with all the things going wrong with production and filming, and the documentary is a lot. It's very interesting, I thought. This made almost $50 million at the box office. So not a huge success, but it made its money back and a little bit more.
Well, I mean, it had Val Kilmer. He was a pretty big star at that time. Brando maybe had some pull, some drawing power. I don't know.
I think Kilmer was a big draw, but
yeah.
And so, yeah, you guys. Now, interestingly enough, Bruce Willis was originally hired to play Edward Prendick, but dropped out. It was around the time he was getting a divorce from Demi Moore, and, all that stuff. That would have been very interesting. Brando played Dr. Moreau.
Oh God.
Yeah. They were going to utilize, and he does die very early in the film, like the first third. His daughter committed suicide, and so they finished whatever he needed to do. They didn't expand or do any reshoots or rewrites or anything like that. So it was like one thing after the other was how they had real bad weather, technical glitches and problems and all this kind of stuff. It's pretty much the same, deal. You get stuck on the island, and this Dr. Moreau has this little person. What was the actor's name? He had the world record.
His name was
Barizu Balk?
No, that's the actress. The little actor was Nelson de la Rosa.
Oh, yep, there you go. You're right.
Yeah, Brando really just became totally obsessed with him. And that's where the mini-me thing came from with Austin Powers, was this movie because Brando got so obsessed with him and insisted that he be in scenes. He came up with the idea for them to both have pianos to play together, and it just became insane.
Guess I'm gonna have to revisit this movie.
Yeah, there was a plane crash instead of a ship getting lost on the shores of the island. Plane crash, and a passing boat, rescues. And Edward Douglas, the character, was a United Nations negotiator, and he was on his way to negotiate some kind of United Nations deal, but instead finds the island of Dr. Moreau. And I'll say this, so Val Kilmer is the one who rescues him, intercepts him, if you will.
Yeah, he plays the right-hand man.
He's the right-hand man of Moreau, but he's a sadist in his own right. There's a scene in the island where he's like, "Oh, look at this nice little bunny rabbit," and he's like, "Oh," and Kilmer twists the thing, kills it, and hands it to him, and says, "It's dinner." And it's like, okay.
Be my Hassenpfeffer.
Yeah. This lab is more about DNA, and it's the 90s, so there's computers and all this other kind of stuff. I thought that the animals, the hyena especially,
that was Ron Perlman, right?
It was Ron Perlman, and just a vicious character. The giver of the law was like a goat kind of character, and had the horns reminded me of the Devil's Reign Orgines makeup. So I don't know if that was a homage or they had a hyena, they had a swine.
Good makeups.
They were really, really good. Like, I remember, I think around this time was a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle movie, and their eyes, they had all the diodes and stuff, like Return of the Jedi. They bumped all the alien things before the CGI. This is when it originally came out.
Makeup on the 90s version.
What's that?
Who did the makeup on the 90s version?
Let me see here. That is a good question.
Very good.
Wasn't like Rick Baker or Stan Winston or something?
This brief interlude while we
sorry.
Excuse me while we
powerful
look it up on the 3D BB.
Yeah.
Come on.
You'd think we would know this, but
you know what? You get a no prize if you put in the comments who did the makeup for this movie, kids. We'll FedEx that no prize to you. I don't think it was anyone big, because there's nothing coming up immediately.
Well, so AI, which is notoriously unreliable, is telling me that some of the work was done in the Stan Winston studio.
That's what I see here too.
Here's one or two.
Enthusiastically launched into pre-production, collaborating with special effects creator Stan Winston. Oh, okay. Yeah.
So
I guessed.
There you have it.
It makes sense, because it was really nice work.
Yeah, It really was. And like I say, the Manimals kill Moreau real early in the film. Kilmer then becomes, for lack of a better word, the Moreau character, although he doesn't emulate Dr. Moreau or
Doesn't he like have a big
Brando.
orgy or something?
There's this weird animal orgy at the end. One of the things too that was disturbing for me with Brando, he put himself in all this white makeup, and he had this like tunic, and he said, "Oh no, it's for the effects of the sun that I." He really had this weird accent too. So, like I said, I haven't seen this probably since '96. It's not my favorite of the films, but it was interesting. It's not great, but it's interesting and it's different and it's not as disturbing as the other two either. Other than the Manimal orgy with Val Kilmer, drinking wine, and I think it's Hyena or maybe it's Baboon Man. Anyway, they shoot. Now they know that the law is, and they shoot Val Kilmer like bang, 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 and then they all just go crazy.
Devolve.
They de-evolve.
The interesting thing I was looking here, it says the film won a Saturn Award for makeup, which went to Stan Winston and Shane Mahan.
Oh.
And Shane Mahan went on to do quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
He worked on Predator 2, Jurassic Park. He worked on Cowboys and Aliens, Alien Romulus. He worked on where is it? Tim Burton's Alice in Wonderland. He worked on Monster Squad.
Cool. He worked on some good films.
Quite a few things.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Lost World, Jurassic Park, Galaxy Quest. And he's gone all the way up to work on Godzilla X Kong New Empire, Skeleton Crew, and an episode of Ironheart. That pretty much brings him right up to.
Okay.
Right times.
Yeah.
So, you
well,
probably saw some of the documentary stuff where they said that. So Brando wanted to wear an ice bucket on his head, and then he said he wanted to pull it off to reveal that Moreau was a dolphin. He would have like a little hole.
When there
Like
was a
dolphin.
group called Buckethead, right?
And that's when the original director said, "I'm out." Or to quote Eric Cartman, "Screw you guys, I'm going home." Anyway, there's this mass, shooting and fire and fighting, and then the peaceful-minded manimals. There's like a baboon, and he's like, "No, don't go, don't." And he's like, "Oh, I'll return," And the giver of the law, the goat guy, is like, "No, you won't. You're not going to come back." And as a matter of fact, there's no way for us to continue our DNA treatments. Those of us that are left are gonna peacefully go back to walking on four legs and being our, natural selves, as nature intended. And he puts a little pontoon together with all these like pieces of bamboo and barrels and whatever, and off he leaves the island. So,
and they lived happily ever after.
Yes, man, which Dr. Moreau can't say the same. I'm going to go in and watch the documentary again because that documentary was fascinating to me. They had all these high expectations. They had Val Kilmer. They had Brando.
Yeah.
I don't know why I wanted to call him Ed Norton.
So the movie and the documentary, were those on what? YouTube, Prime? What were
I want to say no, none of them are available. The documentary is on Prime, but none of the films are streaming. You either have to rent them or have the physical media.
Interesting.
Yes.
The documentary is probably more interesting than the movie itself.
Again, the movie wasn't as bad as I thought it was. You know, things age well, and this didn't quite age well, but it's interesting to see one of Brando, if not Brando's, no, one of his last roles before he passed away, and what he was trying to bring to this character that prior actors didn't, and in his Brando kind of way.
I did watch a few videos with some of, I think they were probably taken from the documentary, and Aruza Balk, and one of them was saying she was trying to sit down with Brando and talk about their characters. Like, how should our characters be like interacting in these scenes? Can we sit and talk? And he was like, no, it's all right. Don't worry about it. Just take the money. Don't worry about it. And like it's just like doesn't matter.
Now, what was cool is that Val Kilmer acted his butt off in this, and you could tell he enjoyed playing the bad guy. He was either in comedies or Top Gun or Batman. He was the hero, and he got to play like a really bad guy, like his version of evil, and that was kind of fun to watch as well for me.
Kill the rabbit.
This is the guy that likes Batman versus Superman. So, that as you will.
So go figure.
So check out these movies.
But before you do that, we're going to check out this book. Now we're going to segue to our censor sweep. And for those that have been sleeping or hiding under a rock, our beloved Walker has a podcast that she does, book reviews called Echoes from the Satellite.
Yeah.
And Walker went ahead and read the novelization. When she started, she sent a picture. We have, a group chat we set up and talk about what we're going to do. And Bob made this hilarious comment. I thought it was hilarious.
It was pretty funny.
Walker, why don't you go ahead and show the cover of the book, and then we'll get into the...
Oh, yeah, that one.
So those of you on YouTube, The Island of Dr. Moreau, H.G. Wells, and what looks on, the animal's shirt is that his shirt is an H.G. Wells t-shirt.
It has the name H.G. Wells on the Humanimals chest. And Bob said in our chat, Bob, what did you say in our chat about this?
I just thought it was interesting that he was wearing an H.G. Wells t-shirt.
Wearing an H.G. Wells t-shirt.
I was like, I didn't think of it that way when I saw it, but now I can only think of it that way.
I mean, I assume it was a big white shirt and it was a nice big white space where they could stick H.G. Wells on there. But it does look like he's wearing an H.G. Wells shirt.
It does now.
Yeah.
That's all I can think of it is a tiger-faced man wearing an H.G. Wells t-shirt.
He's the head of the H.G. Wells fan club.
Apparently so.
Speaking of YouTube, you guys, if you're not subscribed to our YouTube channel, don't miss out. You see a lot of cool stuff. You get to see us. Don't stop listening on podcast apps and the interwebs and stuff for sure. But if you want to jump over to YouTube, we often have some fun things to share. And like I said, we're all on here. Let's start off with the censor sweep. Thank you, Walker, for the book. But why don't you go ahead and plug the Echoes from the Satellite a little and give our listeners, watchers, a little description of what you do.
All right. Thanks, Larry. So as Larry said, I started doing a YouTube channel called Echoes from the Satellite. And so, I've been talking about different books, sci-fi, fantasy. I don't think I've done horror yet, but I'll get around to it. And I thought it might be fun since we're doing the different versions of Island of Dr. Moreau, the different film versions. I thought it might be fun to read the book. I've never read the book. So I read it. And so sometime shortly after you see this, I will have my video out on the book. So you can go to YouTube and look up Echoes from the Satellite and see what I thought of the book. And as I may have mentioned, there's some definite differences from the films. I thought this was an interesting book to read, and H.G. Wells, as one of the sort of granddaddies of science fiction, is probably an important author to read if you're going to get into science fiction. So I have some thoughts. You can go and find the video in the next couple of days, and hopefully it'll make a good companion piece to this video as well.
Walker, if you could do me a favor, on YouTube, I post down your write-up, and we have some links at the bottom for our social media pages. Why don't you throw a link to the satellite this go around, so folks listening to this can click on the link and
good idea.
Yeah, head over there. Give it a couple days or a week, and if you're not following Karen on Facebook, you're also on, like, what is that, Blue Social or something?
Blue Sky.
Blue Sky.
I have left X because they can't do that anymore. So I'm on Blue Sky now.
Okay. So and obviously subscribe and like her YouTube channel. Speaking of
thank you.
Side gigs, Bob, you have some exciting news I think you'd like to share.
Yeah.
Take it away, my friend.
Coming up very soon.
Take a look at his shirt. You're going to know what he's going to give. All right, here we go.
It's Big G.
After this episode, this episode comes out on the 8th. So the 18th, 19th, and 20th, we have our Godzilla Fest Film Festival over at the Balboa Theater. And we just got word the other day that we are going to be able to show Godzilla -1. I'm sure will be the big attraction. We're going to show it not once, but twice.
Nice.
Once on Saturday, once on Sunday. And I think it was interesting. I think Sunday it's actually paired up with Godzilla Final Wars. So there's two ends of the spectrum for you right there. But you're definitely going to want to, if you haven't seen Godzilla -1 on the big screen, you owe it to yourself to go and check it out.
Absolutely.
But we have other movies too. We've got Godzilla 54. We've got some anniversary films like Godzilla Raids Again, which came out in 55. We've got Monster Zero, which came out in 65. We've got Frankenstein Conquers the World that came out in 65. We've got Terror of Mechagodzilla that came out in 75 and holds a place in my heart because Keith Aiken, my Sci-Fi Japan partner, and I did the audio commentary on the classic media release of that movie. We'll show Godzilla 1985. Also, the original Gamera, which came out in 1965.
Hey, Bob, the 85 film, is that the Japanese or the American version? Will we see Steve Martin?
You will. Because that's the anniversary.
Okay.
The original Japanese came out.
Oh, you're right. You're right. Yeah. Okay.
Yes. God, what else? Oh, we've got some non-Godzilla films that we haven't shown before. We haven't shown in a long time, like The H-Man, Battle in Outer Space, and Atragon. So, very cool. Go to GodzillaFest.com, click on shows, and all the titles for the movies will come up, and they all have links to the Balboa website where you can buy tickets. And we did mark it. I made sure that this year we marked every one, whether they're subbed or dubbed, because that's like one of the first things people ask me all the time. And yeah, I don't, sometimes I don't know what version did the theater get? I don't know. So this time I made sure subbed and dubbed. So
nice.
And if it's dubbed, we will show the best possible dubbed version we can find. So if you want to see classically dubbed Godzilla films and the ones you grew up with, come on out and check them out. And then, of course, in September, we've got the full-blown Godzilla Fest convention over at the Holiday Inn Golden Gate on Van Ness Avenue in San Francisco. And we've got a dealer's room. We've got presentations, interviews, and things in the panel room. We've got a game room. We just arranged to have Godzilla pinball machines and a King Kong pinball machine. We also have a couple guys coming out excuse me, to run the game room, and they're bringing old like Game Cubes and original Xboxes and PS2s and things. So they'll have all the Godzilla games from all the eras right there to play. So that'll be cool.
Awesome.
We also have two guests from Japan. We've got Tomoko Ai, who, if you remember Terror Mechagodzilla, she played Katsura, who had Mechagodzilla's controller embedded in her stomach. And then we've got Hurricane Ryu, who did storyboards for the 90s Godzilla films, and he was also a suit actor. He played King Ghidorah in 1991. He played Batra. He also played Baby Godzilla and then Godzilla Jr. in Godzilla vs. Destroya. And we have TJ Storm, one of our favorite guests. He did the motion capture acting for Godzilla and Godzilla King of the Monsters for Legendary. And then we just got Ed Gazzazeschi and Steve Reifel, who just wrote a new book. They wrote the original Ishiro Honda biography, but now they wrote Godzilla the first 70 years. And they worked with Toho on this. And I've seen this thing. It's like big, hardcover. Steve swears it weighs about 100 pounds. And since I had access, Ed Gazzazeschi has an amazing collection of stills from Godzilla. They got access to Toho's library, so Ed made sure he went in and got all the rare stills that have not been in 500 different Godzilla books already. So it should be a treat. They'll be there talking about their books, signing books for you. And we also have a couple people that signed up for dealers tables that are kind of interesting. We got Richard Delgado, who worked on the 94 Godzilla film for Stan Winston that never saw the light of day. And we also have Brandon McKinney has a table. And he's done just tons of animation. So, he did like Batman Beyond, and he did, some Ninja Turtles. He did like quite a few of some pretty classic cartoons. So we're trying to get him. He also did Godzilla comics for IDW. So we're going to get him and Keith Aiken hopefully to get up and do a panel on Godzilla comics. But those are the things that are coming. Tickets are on sale also for the September show on our website, GodzillaFest.com. We also have a meet and greet dinner with all the guests on Friday night at the Fermentation Lab in Japantown. Tickets are up on sale for that. That we can only get about 50 people in. So if you're waiting on buying tickets, more power to you, but you want to grab those quick because those are going to go fast and limited amount. So that's all I have to say.
All right. And, we'll give periodic updates as we get closer to the show. And Bob's going to be there, but who knows? Maybe you might have the Planet 8 crew walking around the convention. So we'll see.
You can play Where's Waldo with the cast of Planet 8. It was interesting because last year at the Giants game, they had Japanese Heritage Day, and they did a Godzilla theme for it. So I had tickets. So I was walking along the line, handing out postcards to last year's Godzilla Fest. And I go to this one guy and I go, "Hey, we're doing a Godzilla Fest over at Japantown. Just want to give you a card." He goes, "Oh, I know about that already." "Really? How do you know about that?" "I heard it on Planet 8. It's always nice to see or hear something out in the wild.
Absolutely. And who knows? We may have some Planet 8 swag we're hiding in and around the convention as we often do with local shows. But we'll see as we get closer. Cool. So yeah, get your tickets. Like Bob was saying, the Fermentation Lounge. Don't wait.
It's a really cool place to hang out too, and we'll have all the guests there and the whole crew from Godzilla Fest, and it should be a lot of fun.
Be awesome. Speaking of Godzilla, I've been hanging out with Jeff Wehenkel. We've had him on the show he's just a talented guy, and he's helped me repair some things, paint some things that got damaged in the fire. But one of the visits, Mike Regan was there, and this beautiful bust of Godzilla, it says Bob, doesn't say Godzilla.
That's mine.
And yeah, here you go, Bob. Those of you on YouTube, yeah, the likeness is uncanny. Yeah, you watch enough of these movies, Bob, you start looking like the.
Why does it say Bob though?
Interesting story. Mike was telling me that I can't remember the name of the gentleman that cast this, but he was afraid selling it at a show that if you put Godzilla, Toho would come after him. So for some reason, he wrote Bob. And as far as I know, Mike's the only one that has these Bob Godzilla busts, and I just love it. Bob is our friend and fellow podcaster. So
well, it's interesting being named Bob because Bob Ekman had an extra lobby card signed by John Agar.
Oh,
to him, so it was like to Bob, John Agar.
Bob.
He had an extra one, so he gave it to me because I'm Bob. And then when we had Marta Kristen for our show at the Bow Theater, our Sci-Fi X Fest, and she brought a still, and she goes, here. She goes, it says to Bob. I don't know who Bob is, but you can have it. And it was signed by the entire cast of Lost in Space.
Oh, wow.
And it says to Bob. So it's like, ooh, thank you.
It's good to be named Bob.
That's right. It's good to be a Bob.
It's good to be a Bob. But anyway, like I said, hanging out with Jeff in his garage is amazing. And to him, it's like no big, like, when we're at work, it's like, oh, here's what we do. And it's not amazing. It's not amazing to him. It's cool. And he looks to do stuff. He was pouring molds today of these monster busts, Universal monster busts. And he was showing me the process. It was interesting. Anyway, he had helped me restore my, this is going to sound weird, my Tingler.
I knew what you were going to say. It still made me laugh.
He helped restore the Tingler. And this is the second version. I can't quite make out who had done it, but
did you have to scream while he did it?
I did constantly. This antenna had broken off, and so Jeff's like, "Oh, well, we'll use this, and we'll drill a hole and put a metal, piece of metal in there, and if we and I was just like, amazing, and he got his spray airbrush thing, and I left some of the soot to give it a little history and some depth. But it's amazing to me how he was able to resurrect the Tingler.
Very nice.
He helped me with Goldar's antenna.
Ooh.
They had broken off, and there's umpteen different glues you can use on depending on the type of material you're trying to glue, if it's a soft plastic, a hard plastic, etc. So there was Jeff, and then the coup de grace, he goes to this convention, I was mentioning it to Karen, called Winterfest, and it's model makers and models and masks and stuff, and Danger Island is his company he has with his friends. Periodically, I post links on our social media sites. And he entered the contest. His Jaws diorama, I don't have a picture of, won a bronze. This, from Pirates of the Caribbean, he just kind of cobbled together himself. There's a light feature here. And this is from Pirates of the Caribbean.
Very nice.
Dead Men Tell No Tales. And he, he just, there's like, oh, I saw this pirate flag, and, the base is made out of styrofoam, and I painted, the sand. There's this little lamp that blinks off and on. The pirate skeleton is from a kit he found online. The hat he sculpted himself. He put little cobwebs on it. And this is the pirate that you see in the start of the Pirates of the Caribbean at Disneyland.
Mhm.
And he's such a talented guy. If you guys have a chance to visit dangerisland.com, please do. There you go.
You keep saying Danger Island. All I can hear now in my head is Chongo.
Now, what's interesting real quickly with Danger Island, most of those episodes, if not all, were directed by Dick Donner.
Really?
Yeah. He did Superman 1, and there's the Donner version of Superman 2. He did the what's that Mel Gibson, Danny Glover?
Lethal Weapon?
He did some of the Lethal Weapon, at least the first 2, maybe 3. And he's done a bunch of other films. But yeah, he directed Danger Island, which used to be part of the Banana Splits.
Mm-hmm.
God, like Danger Island and Land of the Lost, man. Those were both big parts of my growing up.
Very cool. Is anybody watching Ironheart on Disney Plus?
I watched first 3. I haven't watched the second 3 yet. But
are they worth watching? I haven't watched any yet. What do you guys think?
Well,
see, I was using your rule of 3.
Mm-hmm.
I was gonna say, it's okay. But then everyone keeps writing that the last 3 are where it really picks up and it gets really good. So it's like, all right, well, I guess I got to watch the second 3 now.
What say you, Walker?
Well, we watched the first episode the other night, and that might be it. Not because of me, but my partner was like, "Oh, I thought this was going to be a completely different character," and so I was like, "Oh, okay." So yeah, I don't know. It's funny because now we're like in this area of Marvel characters that I have no like actual attachment or whatever to, and I could go another couple of episodes to see if I'm interested, but we'll see if it happens.
6, I figure why not.
That's exactly how I felt about Thunderbolts. I still have not seen Thunderbolts, and I really don't have a desire to watch Thunderbolts.
I liked Yelena, so I wanted to see it because I liked her. I like Bucky. So that was enough to kind of get me to see it. I really liked it. I think it's one of the best things they've done in years, actually.
Whoa. I don't know. It kind of pissed me off. I mean, I won't get into that. If you like it, go watch it and enjoy. I may or may not watch it. It's streaming now. And same with Ironheart. I feel like Bob, the rule of 3. If I could sit through, what was that Star Wars Goonies?
I didn't get through that either. The kids.
Yeah, that was hard to watch. Skeleton Crew.
Yeah,
that was hard to watch, and so was the guy from Squid Games became a Jedi, and they were showing the origin of the witches but I hear tell that they're working on a second season of Ahsoka, which I loved Ahsoka. Mando's getting a movie. He's not getting another series. And I liked the Book of Boba Fett. I hear there's a second season of that. And they're talking about a second season of Obi-Wan. So
I don't know what else there is to do with Obi-Wan.
Well, didn't the second season of Andor just come out?
Yeah.
Yeah, I finished Andor, second season, and
it was really good.
And
I never made it through the
tears. Oh, that last 10 minutes just gutted me. I'm glad you liked it, Walker. Wait, I kind of missed that. What did you just say?
I said the second season of Andor was really good. I know. The first season, I felt it dragged. I didn't really care for it that much, but the second season, I felt was very entertaining.
I'm gonna watch Thunderbolts tonight.
Hi, Cracky.
Okay, kids. Oh, Bob, as I think about it, hotel rooms for the convention. Those is there a link on the site? Do we have rooms still available, or those?
There's a link to the hotel on the site, and there are discounted rooms, which
jump on that, guys.
Sold out of the first batch, except for some with like single king size beds. And I got the rooms with the single king size beds traded out for double beds and got a few more added. So, but they seem to be going quick. So
yeah,
get them while they're hot.
Don't wait, especially if you're going to do the fermentation and then Saturday and Sunday. You don't want to be driving back and forth and having to pay for Uber or a cab.
Well, it's cool to stay in the hotel and you just go down the elevator and you're at the convention.
You're right there.
That's always nice.
Yeah, absolutely. So, all righty. Well, I don't have any of the books. My friend Dennis Smith, Dennis, if you're listening, thank you. Sent me like 6 books, paperbacks, hardbacks to help me. Well, not help me, but if those of you that watch don't know, I've recently retired after 35 years, and thank you. I'm having trouble finding things to do. For 35 years, you go to meetings and you answer phone calls and you do your job, and now it's like, I think I'll go walk the dog and have a cup of coffee.
Yeah, my job just keeps me from doing all the things I want to do. So I got plenty to do when I retire.
I feel for you. But yeah, those of you, speaking of retirement, I was joking around when these guys catch up to retiring, we want to have 1,000+ viewers on YouTube so we can live podcast all day, every day.
Larry needs something to do.
We'll put on our Depends and sit down with a big thermos of.
Hey, if we can get 1,000 viewers on YouTube, Godzilla convention, we could just walk around and record live there, as we're at the convention, or we can record, at the sadly now defunct Bigfoot Museum. I'll get a field call, or we'll see what it feels like burning in Hades by visiting Walker out in what was it, 113 degrees you said the other day, buddy?
It's 113 yesterday. Oh, it can get hotter.
I was just talking to somebody the other day about the fact that I used to love the hot weather, and then it's like now it's like if it gets anywhere higher than like the mid 80s, I'm just miserable.
Yeah, that's where I am. All right, kids. Well, this was another fun podcast. Those of you guys out there listening, Stephen, Ito, there's a whole bunch of other folks, Bill and a couple of Bills. We appreciate you guys.
Bobs and Bills.
Bobs and Bills. Honestly, thank you. Share the good word. Let your friends know that we have a podcast and it's Planet 8 and we have a YouTube channel and we appreciate you guys. Stay safe. Take care of each other. We got some fun episodes coming up, so stay tuned. Until then, this is Planet 8 signing off.
On that note, this will conclude this transmission from Planet 8. We would like to thank all of our intergalactic audience for listening. Be sure to head on over to our website at www.planet8podcast.com, where you can get more information on this episode's topic.
For more conversation, find us on Twitter at Planet8Cast.
Or on Facebook at facebook.com/Planet8Podcast.
We want to thank you guys for tuning in each and every episode. We look forward to your input and opinions. Until next time, this is Planet 8 signing off. End transmission.
By George, he's got it. It is the end.